Larry, behind me you can see the main gate for the Army post Fort Leavenworth. He may be, Leavenworth that is, he may be being transferred here because of the fact that this is the only maximum security prison for the Army in the entire nation. Now this still unnamed private was sergeant was taken out of Afghanistan, moved to Kuwait, and now the Chicago Tribune is reporting that he may be moved to the military prison here at Fort Leavenworth as early as today. The Army is not commenting. This is it, the Army's disciplinary barracks, a military prison. It's on a remote, windswept portion of the Fort Leavenworth Army post. Its nickname, the Castle. But others call it the DB. It is the oldest prison in the entire federal system. Now, while this building was opened in 2002, they have had a military prison here since 1875.
Sorry the guy's got to come here, but he's got to be tried somewhere, and it was a really tragic ordeal.
Leavenworth, Kansas is very proud of its prominent place in the history of the West, but with the DB, a federal prison, state prisons, and private prisons peppered throughout the county, Ivan Tupuchka from the Ukraine was greeted like this when he arrived 8 years ago.
Welcome to prison town. There's a bunch of prisoners here.
And this disciplinary barracks is part of that legacy. When the Army Lieutenant William Calley was convicted of slaughtering South Vietnamese villagers 44 years ago today, March 16, 1968, he was sentenced to life here. But 3 days later, President Nixon changed that to house arrest in Georgia. And the Army private accused of the WikiLeaks scandal, Bradley Manning, has been imprisoned here too.
You know, with everything that goes on up here, and especially with the federal penitentiary that you have close by, everyone's, you know, thinks all the bad people are here.
And now, of course, this afternoon reports that the unnamed Army sergeant who has put relationships between Afghanistan and the United States on such an edge is going to be transferred here while the military justice system builds a case against him. We're live at Fort Leavenworth. Back to you.
Michael, thank you very much. That soldier had been deployed to Iraq 3 times, then to Afghanistan, where his attorney says he saw a friend's leg blown off the day before the rampage. KMBC 9's Maria Antonia continues our team coverage. Maria spoke to a licensed counselor who works with soldiers returning from war and helps them cope. Maria?
In fact, Larry, that's what Chris Sorrentino was doing away from Kansas City this afternoon when we spoke. We Skyped, we discussed mental health issues with a former combat veteran. He's now a professional counselor with his own therapy center here in town.
I've talked to veterans who've had their friend sitting next to them one second, and then there's a hole blown in their chest by weapon fire the next.
And on top of that,
yes, careful.
The constant vigilance, prolonged stress, no time to decompress.
You can definitely understand why someone would not get over something like that very quickly.
Chris Sorrentino himself handled multiple deployments. The retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel says we have to consider that some people may bring their own issues into a stressful combat situation and that not everyone handles pressure the same way.
So you see things in combat, besides those normal stresses that most people don't see, and that's where the trauma has an effect, and that's where the post-traumatic stress disorder comes from.
Now, Chris is known as the combat counselor, and when it comes to PTSD, it's not common for someone to just snap. He says that's something that builds over time. It takes time to develop. Larry, he says, stress indeed does build up over time.
Maria, thank you. Meantime, a top military commander responding specifically to the incident involving the U.S. soldier and the massacre today said the Army is adequately dealing with mental health and other issues related to multiple deployments.
And Larry, Chris Sorrentino will tell you the numbers are high, and the professional counselor will also tell you they probably should be even higher. He worries about those who don't get treatment for a number of reasons. The stigma, concern about the impact on their careers, and also the impact on perhaps having even their security clearance yanked. The number of soldiers in need of treatment for mental health issues ranges from nearly 162,000 in 2010, according to reports
quoting the Veterans Administration, to more than 313,000 according to other sources. Sorrentino is known as the combat counselor. He describes himself as a retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, a combat veteran of multiple deployments. He now runs a therapy center in Kansas City, but was away working with soldiers this afternoon when we spoke with him. We Skyped and he talked about keeping up with the latest numbers.
And just recently I read something that said that as many as 50% of military members are coming home from Afghanistan or Iraq with some kind of mental health issue. So the numbers are fairly high. They're seeing a lot of nasty stuff over there.
I want to take a moment here to show you this website. Take a look. It's helpforvetsptsd.org. Right now, Sorrentino is in the process of setting up this nonprofit right here to help veterans. And Larry, there's a repeated message in quotes here that says, not all wounds are visible. Back to you.
Maria Antonia, thank you very much for that. Sorrentino also says the Veterans Administration is doing a great job, but is overwhelmed with the number of people returning with issues.